The smile never reached his eyes anymore. That's what Maya finally noticed on that cold October morning as her husband Grant fastened his watch, the vintage Rolex she'd saved 6 months to buy him. He caught her watching and flashed that practiced grin, the one that used to make her heart skip. Now it just made her stomach twist. "Big presentation today," he said, kissing her forehead with lips that felt like ice. She watched through the kitchen window as he climbed into his silver Audi, adjusting the rearview mirror with unusual care. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. Maya Hendricks had always trusted patterns. As a data analyst, she understood that anomalies told stories numbers couldn't hide. And Grant's pattern had shifted 3 months ago. Subtle at first, leaving 15 minutes earlier. New cologne she didn't recognize. Gym sessions that somehow never resulted in laundry. Their Seattle townhouse felt emptier these mornings despite his physical presence. Grant would emerge from their bedroom already dressed in sharp suits, scrolling through his phone with an intensity that created an invisible wall between them. The man who once read her poetry over Sunday pancakes now barely made eye contact over coffee. Anniversary dinner reservations confirmed for Friday, Maya had mentioned last week. Testing the waters, Grant's fingers had frozen over his keyboard for just a heartbeat. Friday? Right, perfect. But he'd forgotten to put it in his calendar. She'd checked. This morning, watching him drive away, Maya made a decision that felt both reckless and inevitable. She grabbed her jacket, the olive green one Grant always said clashed with her auburn hair, and followed the silver Audi through morning traffic. Grant didn't head toward his downtown office at Morrison & Klein Architecture. Instead, he turned west, toward the waterfront district where boutique cafes and art galleries lined cobblestone streets. Maya kept 3 cars behind, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. He parked outside a cafe called Morning Light, its windows glowing warm against the gray Seattle drizzle. Maya pulled into a spot across the street, partially hidden by a delivery truck. Through the rain-streaked windshield, she watched her husband check his reflection in his car window, smooth his dark hair, straighten his tie. Then she arrived. The woman was younger, maybe late 20s, with platinum hair and a red coat that screamed confidence. She walked like someone who'd never questioned her right to take up space in the world. Grant's face transformed when he saw her, the practiced smile becoming something genuine, something alive. Maya's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white. She watched them embrace outside the cafe, his hand lingering at the small of her back. Watched them laugh at something she couldn't hear. Watched Grant hold the door open with a gallantry he hadn't shown Maya in months. She sat there for 5 minutes, 10, 15, her breath fogging the windows. Then she started the engine and drove home, her mind already calculating, planning, protecting herself from the earthquake she knew was coming. Maya didn't cry. Not when she returned to their empty townhouse. Not when she opened Grant's home office and began searching with the methodical precision of someone building a case. She was done being the naive wife. She was going to be the prepared one. The evidence lived in plain sight for anyone brave enough to look. Credit card statements showed charges at restaurants she'd never visited. Le Jardin, the Copper Bell, expensive places where appetizers cost what they used to spend on entire dinners. Hotel charges. Jewelry stores. A recurring charge to something called Beacon Florist. Maya photographed everything with her phone, saving files to a cloud account Grant knew nothing about. She found receipts tucked in jacket pockets, business cards for hotels, a handwritten note in feminine script. Can't wait for this weekend. Hello. The woman in the red coat had a name that started with a lot evening. Grant came home at 7:30, loosening his tie with practiced ease. How was your day? He asked, the same question he always asked, expecting the same answer. Quiet, Maya replied, serving pasta she'd forced herself to cook despite her churning stomach. How was the presentation? A micro-expression of confusion flickered across his face before the mask returned. Challenging, but I think we nailed it. There had been no presentation. She'd called his office pretending to be a client. Grant had taken a personal day. They ate dinner in near silence, the television providing cover for their lack of conversation. Grant's phone buzzed repeatedly. He glanced at it, smiled that private smile, then silenced it. "Work?" Maya asked lightly. "Just a team group chat. Nothing important." After dinner, Grant retreated to his office for proposal work. Maya cleaned the kitchen, then opened her laptop and began researching divorce attorneys. She made a list of questions, priorities, needs. She documented their shared assets, photographed the title to his car, their home deed, insurance policies. At midnight, Grant came to bed and fell asleep immediately, unburdened by guilt or conscience. Maya lay awake, listening to his steady breathing, planning her next move. Tomorrow she would visit an attorney. Tomorrow she would start protecting herself financially. Tomorrow she would begin the process of untangling 7 years of her life from a man who'd checked out of their marriage months ago. But tonight, she would gather her strength and prepare for war. The law office of Patricia Shunwaite. I need to change that name per your instructions. The law office of Patricia Brennan occupied the 14th floor of a glass tower in downtown Seattle. Maya sat in a leather chair that probably cost more than her monthly salary, hands folded in her lap. Trying to project confidence, she didn't entirely feel that Patricia was mid-40s. Sharp-eyed, with silver threading through her dark hair like strategic highlights. She listened without interrupting as Maya laid out the evidence, photos, statements, timelines, patterns. "You've done excellent work documenting this," Patricia said, making notes on a legal pad. "Most people come to me emotional and empty-handed. You came prepared." "I'm a data analyst," Maya said. "I understand evidence. Good. Here's what we're going to do." Patricia outlined a strategy. Wait another month to build an ironclad case. Open a separate bank account. Document all household contributions. Make copies of every financial record. And most importantly, Patricia added, act normal. Don't tip your hand until we're ready to file. Acting normal became Maya's Oscar-worthy performance. She smiled when Grant came home, made dinner, asked about his day, pretended not to notice when he texted under the table or took calls in another room. But while Grant lived his double life, Maya was building her escape route. She opened a savings account at a different bank, started transferring small amounts from her paycheck. She applied for credit cards in her name only. She met with a financial advisor to understand their assets and her options. She also hired a private investigator named Thomas Reeves, a former police detective with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "I just need documentation," Maya told him. "Photos, dates, times. Evidence that will hold up in court." "How long has this been going on?" Thomas asked. 3 months that I know of. Maybe longer." Thomas's report arrived 2 weeks later. The woman's name was Lauren Fisher, 27, a junior architect at Grant's firm. They met every Tuesday and Thursday at Morning Light Cafe at 7:45. They'd taken weekend trips to Portland, Cannon Beach, and Victoria. Hotel receipts confirmed overnight stays. Social media showed Lauren posting photos from restaurants Maya recognized from their credit card statements. The affair had been going on for 5 months, not 3. 5 months of elaborate lies while Maya had been planning their anniversary dinner, choosing gifts, believing in a marriage that had already ended. Maya's turning point didn't come from rage or heartbreak. It came from clarity. She was reviewing financial statements on a Wednesday evening when she found it. Grant had opened a separate credit card she didn't know existed. The balance was $18,000. Dinners, hotels, jewelry, weekend getaways. $18,000 of debt he'd hidden while telling Maya they needed to tighten their budget and skip their planned vacation to Iceland. The betrayal wasn't just romantic. It was financial, legal. It was him betting she'd never look, never question, never discover the truth. Maya sat back in her home office chair and felt something shift inside her. The last thread of hope, a tiny voice that had whispered maybe she was wrong. Maybe there was an explanation, went silent. She called Patricia. "I'm ready to file." "You're certain?" "Completely." While Patricia prepared divorce papers, Maya made another decision. She'd been freelancing data analysis on weekends for extra money, small projects that brought in $300 to $400 monthly. Now she reached out to every contact she had, updated her portfolio, created a professional website. Within 2 weeks, she had 3 new clients paying her $1,500 monthly total. It wasn't enough to live on yet, but it was a foundation. Her friend Kaisha noticed the change when they met for lunch. "You seem different," she said, studying Maya's face across their sushi. "Stronger somehow." "I'm preparing for something," Maya admitted. "Something big. Does Grant know?" "Not yet, but he will soon." That Friday was their anniversary. Grant had indeed forgotten until Maya reminded him that morning. He'd scrambled to make reservations at an expensive steakhouse, probably the same one where he'd taken Lauren. Maya wore a navy dress, did her hair and makeup carefully. She wanted to look strong for what came next. Over $40 steaks and wine Grant couldn't really afford. He talked about work, upcoming projects, plans that didn't include her. Maya listened, nodded, smiled. She let him order dessert. Then, as the waiter cleared their plates, Maya slid an envelope across the white tablecloth. "What's this?" Grant asked, his practiced smile faltering. "Open it." Inside were divorce papers and a selection of photos. Grant and Lauren at Morning Light Cafe. Grant and Lauren walking hand in hand along the waterfront. Grant and Lauren kissing outside a hotel. Grant's face went white. "Maya, you've been served," she said quietly. "My attorney will contact yours." Walking out of that restaurant was the bravest thing Maya had ever done. Grant followed her into the parking lot, his voice rising from explanation to pleading to anger as rain began to fall. "You can't just end our marriage like this," he shouted as Maya unlocked her car. "I'm not ending it," she said calmly, turning to face him. Rain plastered her hair to her face, but she didn't care. "You ended it 5 months ago when you decided Lauren Fisher was worth throwing away 7 years. How did you? It's not what you think. I have bank statements. Grant, hotel receipts, photos. I have a private investigator's report documenting 37 separate meetings. I know about the secret credit card. I know about Portland, Cannon Beach, Victoria. I know everything." His mouth opened and closed like a fish. The man who always had words, always had charm, had nothing. "I want you out of the house by Sunday," Maya continued. "Take whatever clothes you need. We'll divide everything else through our attorneys. This is insane. We can work through this. Couples therapy. No." The word came out hard as stone. "You made your choice. Now live with it." She drove home through the rain, hands steady on the wheel despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. When she arrived at their townhouse, she changed into comfortable clothes and called Kaisha. "I did it," Maya said when her friend answered. "I served him the papers. How do you feel?" Maya considered the question. Free. Terrified, but free. Kaisha came over within 30 minutes, bringing wine and takeout. They sat on Maya's couch, and for the first time in months, Maya cried. Not for Grant or their marriage, but for the future she'd imagined that would never exist. For the trust she'd lost. For the innocence of believing love was enough. "You're going to be okay," Kaisha said, holding her hand. "Better than okay." Grant didn't come home that night. Maya didn't know where he went and discovered she didn't care. She slept in their bed alone, sprawled across both sides, and woke up Saturday morning feeling lighter than she had in months. The hard part was over. She'd faced the truth, demanded what she deserved, and refused to accept less. Now came the building, the healing, the becoming someone new. The divorce proceedings moved faster than Maya expected. Grant's attorney tried to negotiate favorable terms, but Patricia was relentless. With documented evidence of adultery and financial deception, Grant had little leverage. He's asking for joint custody of the house until it sells, Patricia reported during a conference call. Wants to keep his retirement account intact. Absolutely not, Maya said. 50-50 split on everything, including his retirement. I want the house sold within 90 days. I don't want this dragging out. Grant had apparently broken things off with Lauren, or she'd broken things off with him once the divorce became public knowledge. Maya heard through office gossip that Lauren had transferred to a different firm, wanting distance from the scandal. Meanwhile, Maya's freelance business was growing. She'd landed a major client, a tech startup that needed comprehensive data analysis for their investor pitch. They paid her $4,000 monthly, and the project had potential to expand on. She hired a business consultant who helped her formalize everything LLC registration, business banking, accounting systems, client contracts. What had started as side income was becoming a viable career. You have something here, the consultant, James Morrison, told her. Companies need what you're offering. You could scale this into a 6-figure business within 2 years. 6 figures. Independence. Security built by her own hands. The realization hit Maya one evening as she worked late in her home office, now transformed from Grant's space into her own. She'd painted the walls a warm coral color he would have hated. Added plants, new artwork, a standing desk that helped her think better. She wasn't just surviving Grant's betrayal. She was thriving because of it. If he hadn't checked out of their marriage, she never would have looked at their finances closely enough to discover her own potential. She never would have started freelancing seriously. She never would have realized she'd been playing small, living in someone else's shadow, accepting less than she deserved. Grant's affair had been devastating, yes, but it had also been a catalyst, forcing her to see herself clearly for the first time in years. She wasn't the woman who needed rescuing or protecting. She was the woman who rescued herself. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in December, 3 months after Maya had first followed Grant to that cafe. She signed the papers in Patricia's office, received her settlement check, and walked out a legally single woman. 6 months after the divorce, Maya stood in her new apartment, a modern loft in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was smaller than the townhouse she'd shared with Grant, but it was entirely hers. Her business, Hendrix Analytics, now had 8 regular clients and was generating $12,000 monthly. She'd hired a part-time assistant to handle administrative work, freeing her to focus on client strategy and business development. She'd also started speaking at women's entrepreneurship events, sharing her story about building a business from the ashes of a broken marriage. The response was overwhelming. Women approached her after every talk, sharing their own stories of betrayal and rebuilding, asking for advice, thanking her for giving them hope. You've become an inspiration, Kaisha observed over brunch one Sunday morning. I've become realistic, Maya corrected. I stopped waiting for someone else to give me the life I wanted and built it myself. She'd even started dating again, casually. Nothing serious, but she'd learned something important. She didn't need a relationship to feel complete. If someone came along who enhanced her life rather than complicated it, wonderful. If not, she was perfectly content alone. Maya heard about Grant occasionally through mutual connections. He'd taken a new position at a smaller firm after the scandal at Morrison & Klein made his continued employment awkward. He was renting a studio apartment, struggling with the alimony and settlement payments that took a significant chunk of his salary. Part of her felt a flicker of sympathy. The larger part felt nothing at all. One evening, she received an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "I'm sorry." It was from Grant, a long, rambling message about regret, mistakes, how he'd thrown away the best thing in his life. He asked if they could meet for coffee, talk about what happened, maybe find closure. Maya read it twice, then deleted it. She didn't need Grant's apology or his closure. She'd already closed that chapter herself and written new ones that didn't include him. His regret was his burden to carry, not hers to absolve. She had a business to run, clients to serve, a future to build. Grant was just someone she used to know, a chapter in her story that had led to better things. She had forgiven herself for not seeing the signs sooner. That was the only forgiveness that mattered. 1 year after discovering the affair, Maya stood on a stage at a Seattle women's business conference, looking out at 300 faces. She'd been invited to keynote, to share her journey from betrayal to entrepreneurship. "The morning I followed my husband to that cafe," she began, "I thought my life was ending. I watched him with another woman and felt like everything I built was crumbling. But that morning wasn't an ending. It was a beginning." She told them about the evidence gathering, the business building, the decision to choose herself. She talked about the fear of starting over and the freedom she found on the other side. "The woman who entered that attorney's office a year ago was scared," Maya said. She was planning her escape from a 7-year lie. But she was also discovering something important. She was stronger than she'd ever known, more capable, more resilient. She paused, making eye contact with women nodding in recognition, some with tears in their eyes. "Here's what I learned. Betrayal reveals character, not just theirs, but yours. It shows you what you're made of when everything falls apart. It gives you a choice: collapse or construct, break or build, stay broken or forge yourself into something stronger." After the speech, women lined up to talk with her. They shared stories of their own betrayals, their struggles, their questions about starting over. Maya gave them her business card, her email, her encouragement. One woman, probably in her 30s, gripped Maya's hand. "I'm going through exactly what you described," she whispered. "I found out 2 weeks ago. I don't know if I can do what you did." Maya looked her in the eyes. "Yes, you can. You're already doing it. You're here, seeking knowledge, preparing yourself. That's courage. Trust yourself. Document everything. Build your foundation. And know that what feels like the end is actually your liberation." That evening, Maya returned to her loft and stood at her window, watching Seattle's lights shimmer in the darkness. Her phone showed notifications, new client inquiries, speaking requests, messages from women thanking her for her words. Grant had thought breaking her heart would break her spirit. Instead, it had awakened something she didn't know she possessed: the absolute certainty that she didn't need anyone's permission or presence to build an extraordinary life. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's reconstruction, rebuilding yourself into someone so fulfilled that their betrayal becomes the gift that set you free. Asterisk.